Good afternoon, everyone. So, in advance, excuse my mistakes because I might have little errors in translation. But let's go. So, the focus on this study is in the bindings, the conservative bindings of the House of Rui Barbosa Foundation. It actually started in another study that was an assessment of the collection. The collection holds around 23,000 books, and the ones studied here are a really small part. Like most cases, I think, of rebindings, the issue started with a flood that took place in 1988 in Rio de Janeiro, in the museum that holds this collection. So there was severe damage to some of the bindings, and at the time, it was decided to take off some of the covers and keep some, depending of the damage done. So they treated the middle, they treated the content, but they didn't do the covers. A few years later, already in 92, it was decided to adapt a version of Clarkson's limp vellum binding. But there are a few questions. There were a few issues in the way. This is the one created by the House of Rui Barbosa, by the crew of the time, now over 30 years. Because of money issues and we didn't have anyone who provided the materials, suppliers for parchment and leather, the decisions had to be changed. So it was used a fabric on cotton, raw cotton, but to the lacing, to the thongs, we used tanned leather. And we're gonna see that consequences happened. So the model used was the Clarkson one, but unlike what he did with parchment and alum toad, it was used fabric and tanned leather. And there was a little part on his paper, but that the conservators at the time didn't notice, is that he recommends the binding to small books, not to the big volumes. So, and like he said, it was using cotton threads to do the sewing around the thongs, now in tanned leather. So the idea was to follow this model, but those ones were done by a conservator in the National Library of Brazil, Tatiana Cristo. So, those ones are done more than 20 years later. So those are from the 2019, so much more recent. And I have to say, when the House of Rui Barbosa adopted those models, it was before new models of conservative bindings were presented. It was before the Spinoza model was published, was before Christine Beers and Anna Benny had. So, those are still the ones created by the Clarkson model. And so, as I told you, our model was applied in 1992, but for a short period. They were discontinued really quickly because by 1996, the House of Rui Barbosa started having a specialization in book bindings. So it changed the way the books were treated in the institution. So the one on the right was a first model with parchment, but there is only one of those because of the shortage of material, the shortage of parchment in Brazil at the time. And the one on the left is the materials, the model that was used after all. So, the consequence. First, most clearly, dissociation of the covers, the original covers. The original covers, they were taken off because they were considered too damaged, or there were even cases where there was never an original cover. Or some, maybe they were completely lost. We still haven't found. So there is this need to adapt because of the budget, of our short budget that is still short in those days, nowadays, but in the early 90s was even worse. And one other issue that no one could foresee, because it wasn't tried before, it wasn't tested before, was that because the binding couldn't support the weight of the books. So, and also the ones I hoped that they didn't foresee was the level of acidity on the tenth letter and how it would migrate to the paper. So, and those pictures, I think they show pretty clearly what happened. One, you can see the marks of the acidity, and the other it can hold still. So during this assessment of the collection, we found those books, and we have to question what would you do for that? What can we do? So it starts another question, a big issue. I don't know how to work. I don't know. Sorry. There was one more. Sorry. Yes. Oh, thank you. I thought it was... Okay, sorry. Really? Oh, so... And those are the other models. They were published way before, or way after that. The one by Spinoza, that it's nowadays one of the ones that the National Library of Brazil uses on this day, the one on the right, and the other proposed by Ana Bene and Christine Beers. And now, what happens? Well, we were left with quite an amount of problems, not trouble, but as I said in the beginning, some of the covers were dissociated. But they were kept, but some, okay, well, not all of them. And in our books, they have the placements in the shelves on the ration, so we can still find them. Okay, right on time. So in this was one of those cases, and there are the ones that we can't. Those are the ones that we are still studying what we're going to do. If we're going to create another binding, if they really need one. So, that's it. So, thank you so much.